Hey guys, welcome to another Note to File Live. It is Tuesday. I'm not sure what day it is. I think it's May 2nd. Anyways, it's a little bit different. I want to do a little bit of a sort of open forum today if we can. Me and Dr. Fox have a lot to talk about, a lot to cover, a lot of fun stuff happening in the industry right now. If you have any interest in jumping on and talking with us, shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I will get you a direct link to hop on. Otherwise, as always, feel free to, hit us up in the comments. I really, I love doing podcasts, but honestly, the most fun is getting sort of engagement and feedback and having, more open-ended conversations with the community. So with all that being said, Dr. Fox, how's it going, man?
Hey, how's it going, Brad? How's life?
Oh, it's ups and downs, and it's a wild time at the site level. We're seeing,
Mm-hmm.
after a relative period of somewhat quiet, a lot more study opportunities and SIVs
Yep.
happening all at once. These things tend to come in waves, it seems,
hmm
and we're
When
kind
are
of
your hot spots? When
wrestling.
are your hot times for getting your trials?
I don't know. I always feel like I try to guess and I'm always wrong. It's always like at the end of the year, I'm like, oh, it's going to get quiet between November and December. And then it doesn't. It just
Yep.
blows up and
Yep.
gets busy. So, I've kind of given up trying to guess, just kind of go with the flow instead. So,
hmm
again, but it always seemed to be kind of quiet or insane. Not always a lot of middle
Yep.
ground, but,
We
maybe
always
that's just
see
me.
April, May, and September, October. It's like this giant bursts of awards, just people trying to get their feasibilities in. I know when we were doing manufacturing, everyone tries to get filings in by the end of the year. So December just is killer for manufacturing. And
Mm,
we see a lot of deadlines coming in for December from a lot of our sponsors. So
nice.
there's
Gotcha.
waves. There's waves. It's the life cycle of the RFPs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Hey, Hamid. Nice
Hey,
to see you,
Amid,
man.
how's it going, man?
Hey, everybody out there. You guys, again, feel free to jump in the comments, say hi, leave us a question, tell me I'm dumb, my opinions are wrong. Give me anything. It's okay. I like hearing it all either way.
hmm
So, let's just jump out the gates, man. I know there's some cool stuff we want to talk about, but I want to hear a little bit about how CRPN is doing. I know you've had a couple of milestones maybe, and I
Huge.
want to talk about there. So let's hear it, man.
Huge, huge. Well, for one, you can see I have a background now thanks to my friend Rick Greenfield. He made this for me after I interviewed him on CRP and Central. I said, "Hey, I love your background." He goes, "Hey, send me your logo. I'll make you one." And he
Nice.
looks like I'm just traveling through Lightspeed. He did a
It
great job.
does. Man of many
Um,
talents.
on the national level, CRPN is growing. I'm near 50 sites now. It was really good feeling yesterday. Someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, I got this trial." I pinged the network, and within an hour, there were 5 sites ready for the CRO, and boom, just done. So it worked. CRPN worked there. I just finished my first financial monitoring visit, which is an FMV that I will stand behind, and the site was very very happy. So we recovered a lot of money they had already earned. They just didn't know they could request it. So that's exactly what the FMVs are meant to do, and I think that we had a really good success. And I may even be doing a white paper after it with their permission. So well, you'll be seeing maybe
Nice.
some publications on how CRPN's financial models and auditing procedures are helping our sites to do their very best on a financial level.
No, and I'm going to talk more about that. I also want to say what's up to our boy Ted. Ted, I don't know
Hey, Ted.
if you saw. I'm sure you did see the new decentralized trial
hmm
guidance that came out. I don't know, yesterday or this morning, maybe. I'm not sure where. It seems like there's some direct talk about healthcare providers, local healthcare providers who are not part of the study, which I find super interesting. Probably bodes very well for MedVector. So, Ted, if any interest in jumping on, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've had a chance to review it. If not,
hmm
no pressure there. And I know
There's Angel.
the boys
Yep.
over at Clinically,
Yep.
uh, your pals with. So,
Yep. And
you know,
thank you, Angel. Thanks for representing clinically and telling everyone about CRPN.
Very cool. So let me ask you this: this is probably a stupid question, but I mean, are sites leaving money on the table even when they negotiate well? Let's say, I mean, how much money are sites leaving on the table? How much of a problem is that? I mean, I know even with a well developed and built CTMS, uh, even if you do everything right on the front end, you still have to be tracking all of this stuff that happens. It's happening all over the place. It's not easy to know when did somebody buy dry ice. All these little things that can add up money over time. So, I mean, how big of a problem is it really?
I mean, it all depends on the site, but realistically, sites can leave anywhere between 18 to 30% of the revenue they're supposed to earn on the table, depending on how they manage.
That's insane, right? I mean, that
It
can
is.
be
It's insane.
significant.
And they're over here like negotiating these insane budgets with scheduled visits and things like that. And so they get these crazy contracts, and they don't even take advantage of the contracts they've agreed on. They don't even know how to sometimes. And of course, sponsors sometimes don't make it easy. They make all these hoops that you have to jump through to get the money, and then it discourages sites from even trying to build those processes. So they're just like, I'll just build a larger budget per patient and get all the money that's kind of passive money. I don't I don't try to access all of the money that I have to work a little bit to get.
Do you
And
feel?
yeah,
Do you feel? And I've sometimes felt this. Like, is any of that by design? I mean, surely. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't want to get
yeah.
too
I
conspiratorial, but sometimes I feel like it's almost set up to make it hard for you to get the money that's owed to you unnecessarily.
well, I think what happens is, I mean, the people that write these contracts are lawyers, right? And they do a very good job being lawyers. Their the job is to try to protect the interest of their clients. But that also means that the people that they're writing, you could call it against, but the people that they're writing these provisions for, I mean, they've established so many hoops that I think it is kind of like by design, but it may not be an intentional design, but it's more of a design by silo. The guys that are writing this, they don't do the work. Have you ever my favorite one was the requirement to have pre-authorization before every shipment for dry ice. So you had to call and get permission to invoice for dry ice before every shipment.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
insane.
just not someone who's actually been there on a visit with a sample that has to get out. You can't sit there and ask permission to invoice for dry ice. That's some lawyer who thought it was a great idea to maybe just protect the best interest of their client.
Well, and I think I wonder if like there are things that sites can do smarter, like because there some studies will have the provision that they'll compensate you for dry ice if you send a receipt, but then
Mhm.
maybe your coordinator went and got it. Maybe they brought a receipt back. Maybe God knows where they put that receipt. It didn't make its way back to the person it goes to. Like, are there
Yep.
smarter ways to just say, like, look, we know on average we spend $20 a pop on dry ice. We're just going to tack $20 onto,
Mhm.
every shipment. I mean, maybe those are some possibly more efficient ways to, make sure sites aren't
Well,
losing out.
my response, because they, please send an itemized remittance for your dry ice. And I said, well, the samples arrived at temperature on time. There's your justification. Go talk with them. You can confirm they arrived. Anything on an internal level, and especially for our site makes their own dry ice, right? So we have these CO2 cylinders and we buy them and we utilize them for services. And I tell a sponsor, unless you want to continually rent CO2 cylinder space at my site, which is going to be a lot more expensive than this invoiceable, you need to just back off. And most of the time, they'll be like, yeah, sure, no problem, because they know better. The samples arrive on time. You get the services provided. You pay what you promised. It's that simple.
Yeah, seems simple, right?
Seems yeah, seems simple. But
Well, fair enough. No, that's good to know, and that's something that you're, doing as part of CRPN is helping sites audit essentially.
mhm.
And you talked about, I mean, look, I don't know. I feel like sites aren't always that transparent, but like we've had years where we've grossed, $3 million, let's say. I mean, if
Mhm.
we left 10% on the table, that's
That's
pretty significant.
pretty good chunk of money.
I could have hired, more coordinators. I could have gotten a lot more accomplished with that, that 10%. So that's worth it. How are you sort of monetizing that for sites? Or like, what's
So
your model?
for my model, for which part? I mean, you if you request like this audit or this financial
Right.
monitoring visit as a result, CRPN can come in. It's under complete confidentiality. It's in the master network agreement. So it's not like you're going to be disclosing anything. You can remain confidential as you see it. And you scrub all the contracts. You make sure that everything is posted, everything is remitted. It's a complete financial overview. And then at the end, you may have a recommendation for certain procedures you might want to consider, or definitely you'll be sending out invoices for things that you hadn't collected or you didn't even know you could collect. And you'll be surprised, depending on the contracts that you have, what little pockets of information, pockets of money that you could be collecting that you didn't. And importantly, as CRPN is growing to be that entity that knows how to talk to the CROs. They know what the CROs expect. So it's not like it's all these hoops that were put in front of you. CRPN's already navigated them. So it's like we know exactly how to get the money.
Yeah, no, like that. And I think even, we've been doing this a long time, but I think it's always important to stop every so often and, re-examine the way you're doing things. We find that I talk to site so-and-so over here. Well, oh, they're billing for something. Didn't ever occur to us, but is something that is taking up time that, we should be being compensated for. And, as a site, especially a smaller site, I think you can go nuts, but it's really challenging to sort of think outside your own box sometimes. So it's nice to have those conversations with an outside partner and someone like CRPN, who has also been working with and seeing the perspective of, dozens, 50, maybe other sites, and being able to use that experience, right? Because again, that can be hard. I can rack my brain all day, but there are things I will just never come up with on my own. That we're not being compensated for.
So use the network, utilize it, make yourself better. So another announcement, it's really cool, is on the internal level. On a local level, I made my own IRO, Land of Lincoln Clinical Research, and we did just get awarded an autism trial to test autism in clinical research. And because of what we're doing, I know this sounds silly, but for anyone out there listening, CRPN is actually going to be on a NASCAR truck this summer. So you'll be seeing us on the national news, even on the NASCAR circuit. I never expected that to happen, but things just kind of happened. So
yeah, that seems like a happy coincidence. Maybe you probably never set out to necessarily do that, but
never wanted to be on the hood of a NASCAR truck, but apparently it's going to happen this summer. So if anyone out there watches NASCAR, keep an eye out for the CRPN logo.
No, that's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Well, I want to probably circle back. I definitely want to have some more talk, especially about concept of fair market value and the concept of like who is sort of controlling the conversations in fair market value. We'll come back to that a little bit. But I do, in the meantime, want to talk a little bit about, something that a lot of people have been talking about here lately. I had a lot of people reach out to me on the side about Care Access. And, first of all, my heart goes out to everybody who was affected by these layoffs, because as much as I'm a critic of, these companies, the way they work, ultimately these are good people who are suffering the consequences. So I wish nothing but the best, for everybody out there who's been affected by them. I have people reach out. I'm always the first to say I'm the last person to come to for career advice. I had basically had to quit working with other people. That was the way I went through my career, is by getting out of the system entirely. So there are great people out there who can help support you. If you're in the comments, by all means, put your name out there, try to be a resource. The one beautiful thing about, research is that we are a very supportive community. But I kind of wanted to get your opinion. Obviously, we may never know what all has happened, what the details are. We know about the Pfizer debacle and the Lyme disease trial. I've had people reach out with other anecdotes, obviously I can't confirm any of those, but really more generally speaking, the concept of a CEO writing a social media post to sort of say, oh, whoopsies, sorry guys, we had to lay off a whole bunch of you. Sorry, I don't know how to get that off my screen right now, but let me go back. Is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? It seems risky to me to put that out there. It's a good message, obviously. I don't think there's anything inherently negative with
the way
what he's saying, but I feel like people could be a little bit rubbed the wrong. I know I would if I saw this. I'd be like, hey man, then don't fire everybody if you're so butthurt about it. Also, no, turn your comments off. Come on, let people have their say. I also think that's a little bit, uncool. But anyways,
do you ever? So I like to analyze writings. I like the psychology of linguistics and sentence structure. And I don't know if you read the comment that came from the CEO when the debacle started. Sure. But if you compare that to this, you can tell this was a totally different person writing it. That's the one thing that I could tell is I think this is like a marketing or PR person saving face. I doubt it was the CEO who wrote it or posted it. And that's the first step is this is just kind of like, I'm saving face after everything that happened. The second one is, and I don't know I wrote a book on the job cycle and the job process because I got burned a few times too, and I had to learn some really rough lessons. So if anyone out there in Care Access world is interested, I could send you the link to the book. But I mean, it was nice enough. It was, hey guys, this is they made a really big point to focus on who was left and to focus on the fact that it was not completely gone. And then they also did the due diligence to offer to be recommendation to the people who lost their jobs, which, again, I think that's a really good political move for them to do. But overall, I kind of agree from a CEO's perspective, especially when you had global attention. It may not be the best course of action and make yourself yet another target. Although, it's a positive message, but
I mean, even though it was I think it's kind of funny to still be like, oh, we're also happy to share future plans. To kind of sneak that in there. This will seem like, come on, man, just
future plans.
Just shut up and like let it be about the people who going through a tough time, and that's fine. Again, if it were me, I think it'd be better just either completely be quiet. I think to Angel's point, like, I don't love the idea of like it being a one-sided conversation, and that's fine. I mean, look, I can't imagine what kinds of things would have been put in the comments. I'm sure I would have trolled him too. So good for him. Probably a smart move on his part to keep it
realistically.
keep it
I think if you wanted to take this strategy as a CEO, you probably would have done more of a press release over like a LinkedIn post. That seems like a little bit more of an appropriate time. There's nothing social about this social media.
Well, and I mean, with everything that's gone wrong lately with CEOs, the crying CEO who, went viral for, laying off people and then crying about, I just feel like it's a very double-edged sword, but maybe he pulled it off and maybe I'm being a little too critical, but I mean, there's obviously people in the comments here. I can't see who that particular LinkedIn user is, but
so there's your email right there.
Well, yeah, there you go. And actually it's Violetta Vanderhelm. So, you guys laid off, reach out, whatever we can do in the comments to help people out. Frank, these people have families, kids to support, tuitions, listen, I'm doing very little to nothing to get anyone connected, but there are people out here in the comments and people out on LinkedIn. Pay attention to the community. I just can't imagine going through that. So it's my heart's kind of go out to you guys. I've been told by important people in the industry that this is just a part of big pharma. Not everyone's used to it. I feel like that's bullshit. I mean, I wouldn't want to hear that. If I've been laid off, maybe it is part of working for big pharma, but it still doesn't feel good to have to go
Well,
through that.
I don't
So
think it's big pharma only. I mean, how many of those stories have you heard where someone says, "I worked here for 30 years and they let me
fair.
go like I was a stranger"? That's kind of like the whole business is business thing. And
Fair, but I mean, what do you think it says, or does it say anything when you're seeing this happen with Caraxis? You're seeing Science 37 lay off what they laid off 20% of their workforce in April. Their
Mhm.
stock price is getting,
Yep.
beaten up pretty bad. And not that that necessarily means anything, but I mean, does that say something about the public sentiment of DCT, or is it just these particular companies, or, is there anything to draw from this really?
I think because it's not just pharma. If you're looking all over the place, you've got layoffs every week that you're hearing. I think it's just the way the economy is going. It's kind of like the massive reset that everyone is kind of they're predicting anyway. Back to Science 37, wasn't there a spot where they actually came back and tried to rehire a bunch of people at a lower rate?
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that.
So, I mean, they're deflating. People are deflating because costs are increasing and they can't afford it. So
Sure.
businesses do what they have to do to survive. Um,
Also, shout out George. Looks like
Good job, George.
Parexel's CRA programs opened up applications today, so appreciate that, George. Thank you for posting that. Again,
Mhm.
anything that's useful,
Yeah. And my
Um,
heart my heart goes out to the Care Access people who experience this. Every time I hear about this, it honestly brings me back some PTSD. Um, but I mean, you get through it, and the one thing I could say is you just have to be persistent. My family and I, we have a backup plan. So at all times, it's a big red button. If I lose my job, well, I don't have to worry about that anymore. But if I'm in a situation where there's always an emergency backup plan, like we know exactly what bills to drop, what food to do. It's like we have a backup budget. Everything is in place for our family to make sure that they're safe if something changes. And that was probably one of the best things that I ever could have done because now it's like, okay, last time I lost my job, I within 2 hours I was applying for jobs and we had our budget ready and we were good for like 9 months without money.
well, and
And
that's
yeah,
awesome. I mean, I was a research coordinator, for the longest time. I mean, I basically lived paycheck to paycheck. So
yep, yeah, yeah,
a layoff would have absolutely screwed me,
it destroys
to
you.
have to, yeah, that would have, and I wasn't in a position to where I had that sort of cushion. So again, I mean, obviously smart.
Mhm.
I know not everybody can do it, and certainly some are more
Uh,
affected, so to speak, than others.
My
Uh,
first job was at a medical school, and the medical school was on grants, and it was always like, "Well,
mm,
we're good for another 6 months.
right,
We're good for,"
right.
and you're always it's not just on paycheck to paycheck, but just like, grant to grant, and as soon as you don't get a grant, you don't have the job. So, it's soft money. We have to live in that kind of a world.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's perfectly fair. I mean, and again, we're seeing a little bit of uptick in the comments.
Mhm.
Babatunda, I'm sure I butchered that, but I did my best. Part of
That
it,
was good.
check it out. Look, there's George posted some info about Parexel's Apex program, which I think is sort of like
Mhm.
a CRA training, if I'm correct, to kind of bring in entry level CRAs and train you up. Um, you know, there's some opportunities out there. So and look, again, I'm like the least qualified person to talk about this. I've never been laid off. Luckily, I guess I don't have to worry about that now. I'll be laying myself off if
Mhm.
anything, but I just can't imagine what that is like to go through, especially when a lot of these people have given years. I know they haven't been around. Some of them haven't been around that long, but either way, it's unfortunate. So
It's
okay,
in all
final.
honesty, yeah, I mean, seriously, if you're laid off and you're not used to it and you're feeling it, going to some form of grief counseling would be very helpful because it's literally like losing a part of your life or someone. It's like having to completely change what you do. If anyone has any questions about that, I've been through it a few times and I've walked a lot of, because I don't know if you knew, but I have a consulting business on the side, like job coaching and resumes and things like that. I've walked people through this path before and it's never easy. And there's a lot of anger involved. There's a lot of things that you have to go through mentally. And honestly, we as a society do not offer that as a support. mental health. It's National Mental Health Month. My God. And here we are talking about layoffs. I mean, the irony there is just huge.
Well, that's why I think when I when I posted about it, I hear the amount of people like, "Yeah, it's normal. Just move on." I mean, okay, you're not wrong, but also like, I mean, that can
Still,
take
I
a
mean,
toll.
we
That can
all
take
have
a toll.
hearts. We have
For
hearts.
sure. Most of the
So,
time, you know.
yeah.
Well, it makes me curious about, you know, this concept. And I think we're seeing it. I've seen it before with companies that don't have, you know, the publicity of a Care Access or even a Science 37, which maybe going through the same, you know, sort of thing. Like, are these companies simply trying to scale too quickly without knowing what they're doing, right?
Well,
Like,
have you ever talked to these companies, the promises they make to their investors? It's headcount.
This is what I'm hearing over and over again is there's a lot of over promising. And I know there are industries, I mean, hell, a lot of Silicon Valley and, you know, startup mentality is a fake it till you make it. Well, you can't do that when you're dealing with thousands of patients, their data, good clinical practice, FDA regulations. You can't fake it.
Yep. And how many of these people starting these companies think they're making a bunch of money who have no idea what they're doing in research? How many people who are not lawyers or directors actually read the CTAs or understand the logistics? The answer is it's probably someone from like a financial background or like some other background that's not clinical related who, you know, this is a really good ROI. It's an awesome investment. I'd like to try this. And they don't have the guidance that they need to navigate.
All right. I think I lost you for a couple minutes there. Are we back?
I'm here. I'm back. I'm back. Yep.
That could be my internet connection, or it could be Big Brother trying to shut us down from having this conversation. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, and you know, there are other points of view. Look, you know, someone's mentioning, you know, having gone through this all the time, it builds character, pushes you outside your comfort zone. Yes, I mean, I'm all for the sort of stoic principles of
bootstrap,
and realizing that, you know, you can't control outside forces. What you can control is how you react and respond to them. That certainly does provide that opportunity. It'd be better to do it in a way that doesn't affect, you know, whether or not you can pay your mortgage, probably. Yeah, you're not wrong. I can see both sides.
Well, you never know, Brad. Maybe our CEO friend over here could come onto the show and explain things that are happening with the proper PR oversight.
You don't need PR oversight. Come on, just talk. We can just talk like bros. No, I'd be curious. I mean, again, it's none of my business per se, but I do think these things ripple across the industry in maybe ways that are more important than we give them credit for. Again, especially if you're talking about the idea of, you know, how legitimate is, you know, some of these DCT concepts. And while, again, I've been a critic, I think there's great value in some of them, but not if the public, you know, representatives are, you know, getting thousands of their patients pulled off of studies because of bad GCP. It doesn't bode well for the concept, which we already struggle with. We already struggle with trust. We already struggle with, you know, getting out into these communities. And, you know, what of the patients who are being told, oh, sorry, you know, something went wrong or that study was handled incorrectly? Do you think they're going to be great cheerleaders for clinical trial participation? Probably not.
No, I don't think so. And I wonder when this is going to be part of GCP training. Sometime in the future, you're going to see taking GCP training and then looking at Care Access as a case study for what you should not have done.
That may well be. I still am curious if what happened will really come out. I mean, if all that data is not going to be reviewed because it got pulled, is there really any risk of, or any certainty that it's going to be, you know, really looked over in a way that's meaningful? Will we ever know? And
yeah, I don't know.
My skeptical part of me says probably not.
Yeah,
they'll probably keep on moving down the road. It'll just sort of become a footnote, you know, unfortunately. So I'm going to pull that off and maybe we can talk about something a little more positive. I'm not trying to necessarily beat up the point. It's just I feel like there's not a lot of transparent conversation about it. I mean, you know, not that. go ahead.
I'm just curious, Brad. We talked about CRPN. Can you tell me about Hightower and what it's doing? Like, how's it going, man? I see you all over LinkedIn and on boards and things, but how are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I do I do the live stream, I do a podcast. I love sitting on boards, talk to a lot of people in the industry, but ultimately at the end of the day, I'm running sites.
Mhm.
And I say sites is kind of a loose term. We're mostly integrated within practices. We're integrated in a fairly large hospital system here in Oklahoma. It's been going great. I mean, we did, we're adding a lot of oncology trials here in
Oh
Oklahoma
wow.
City in a smaller sort of community-based oncology cancer institute outside the university, which has drawn a lot of attention from some sponsors and CROs who are sort of unhappy with the
Yep.
bureaucracy and red tape of working with a large academic institution. Looking at signing a deal with another sort of rural cancer center in Arkansas, and really just growing across all therapeutic areas. I mean, really what we want to do is lower the burden for physicians to participate in trials, right? I mean, we know the problem.
Yep.
I'm not going to list out the stats or beat a dead horse, but a lot of physicians want to participate, but they just simply don't know how. They don't have the throughput. They don't have the infrastructure. So providing that in a way that doesn't have any kind of cost associated with it up front. We split study income. That puts the pressure and the onus on us to help them build a successful program.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think helps align everybody. I mean, you can go out and, try to charge for the work, but, if you can't produce, it's only going to, again, sort of poison the well, so to speak, and make things, a bad experience for everybody. So it's been great. Q1, we did very well. We did 7 figures in Q1 and
Nice.
trying to continue to grow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Trying to continue to grow on that. And I wish more sites would talk about that publicly. I know we're not publicly traded companies, but I think it'd be really useful and interesting. Not that everyone has to share all of their financial secrets, but to sort of hear, what that looks like. I have people reach out all the time who want to start sites or start site networks who just don't know what's possible. So, I'd like to hear more people be sort of transparent with, what they can do or what's been done financially. So I just think that's interesting.
Yeah. And congratulations. I know that. So what boards are you on now?
It's a good question. I'm on a board with Castor, and I'm really trying to work with them in terms of sort of more of the idea of site owning, like the e-consent process. They have a really nice e-consent platform. We're trying to get it incorporated into some of our trials from the site side, versus letting a sponsor hand you an e-consent platform. Working with One in Health. Love those guys. Shout out to Steve Wimmer and his Hawaiian shirts.
Yep. And his voice. What a voice. He's like an opera singer.
Is he? I didn't realize that.
He was on that Christmas video.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And he was like belting it out, man.
Yeah, we need to get him to lay down some like theme songs for us, probably.
Yeah. I'm seeing all kinds of good comments here.
Yeah, anything you want to jump out? I'll pull something up if you see anything you want to see.
Well, there's good old Doug. Doug's a really another CRPN Central interviewer. I love his mission and what he's doing.
Just about everything Doug says that you should pay attention to. Clinical trial technology is a dangerous and challenging place to learn lessons. Every new company needs to start somewhere. No sponsor wants to be the guinea pig for a new venture. There's no room in the industry for learning from mistakes transparently. I'm not sure if that's sort of sarcasm. Do you think that we should be more transparent, or it's just sort of the nature of the beast in that it won't be transparent because nobody wants to be that?
Yep. And I think he's right. It's pretty much saying that the people who are innovative are punished, and the people who kind of stay in their ways are the ones that stick around, unfortunately.
Well, and I'll say this, I mean, again, this is just maybe cynicism showing, but I mean, do you really think that was the first, what we heard from the whole Pfizer Care Access? Do you think that was the first thing that's happened?
No.
Oh, no, absolutely not. And I've heard as much, through the grapevine again, but I can guarantee for every one thing we hear, 10 are probably not being discussed.
So I when DCT started hitting the fields, when COVID hit and they started doing this, I always had a saying, and it was that the FDA had steel corners, and that things will come back to, like, the pendulum will swing back to where the regulations will not allow for what they accommodated during COVID. And I said that in the SAGs. I was dismissed from SAGs. People didn't want to hear me. The ones that said, you better adopt DCT now or else you're going to be a dinosaur. I'm like, guys, the people
Never
who are
going
saying
back.
that, yeah, never going
back.
back. Never. It's like, why don't we really pay attention to the quality here? Why don't we look at the history books and figure out why we're doing what we're doing, and just in the matter of a year, just cutting away years worth of regulations that were there for a reason. You knew it was going to come back, and you knew that these emergency systems to get the world back on track would not be the mainstream, because emergencies are expensive. And there's no way that you could have survived like that. So,
yeah, no, it's a fair point. And it's tough, right? Because I see a lot of value in some of the lessons learned during that time. There's no question. And I guess you could maybe in some ways make an analogy between the whole, like, remote work from home versus work from the office. Like, there's probably, we gained a lot of advantage from work from home, but that doesn't mean companies now don't want to shove everybody back into an office and pay that overhead. Now, which is the right way? Well, I don't know. There may not be a clear, black and white answer to that, but it's still very interesting that it still seems to be mixed in terms of, people's opinions.
I agree. So, Patty, I don't want to take up.
No, please do. I mean, we got a little bit of time.
So in a nutshell, Patty, I was a site owner who started the Clinical Research Payment Network, that's CRPN, designed to provide support to sites, specifically local sites. Academic medical institutions are also invited, but I haven't had one of them sign up yet. There's likely too much red tape for that approval. But what it boils down to is CRPN provides a lot of really good financial and accountability solutions for our sites. Everything from dynamic master fee schedules to make sure sites get paid on time every time for the work that they do, all the way to accountability with the PACT score. It's kind of like a credit score for sponsors and sites, so that everyone can ensure that they are working with each other, and they can ensure that the people they're working with are dependable.
There you go. And where can people go learn more?
www.crpaynet.com. Or you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place. I think I'm managing like 6 LinkedIn profiles now. and I make it a practice to be part of LinkedIn every day, because I want people to know who I am.
There you go. Yeah. So reach out to Daniel. He'll, Dr. Fox he'll set you up. It's a great movement. I mean, I think it's just a matter of time. You said you've already got 50 sites or so.
Just about 50. I got my first Polish site, so we are international now.
Nice.
We've got Poland, UK, and Australia. So,
well, you better start learning some new languages.
Exactly. I need to start getting my passport updated and go travel the world. So.
And I want to talk a little bit about a poll that I posted on LinkedIn here, which also probably kind of ties into the work that CRPN is doing. And, sort of a shout out to Swadesh, as he was messaging me, talking about his experience and having some conversations and hearing before that sites had no interest in, sharing their budgeting data. They didn't want to do it. Nobody would want to do that. And I was like, I'm not so sure that that's the case. It's interesting because we know that there's data sets that are being used sort of, I don't want to say against us, but being used on the other side that maybe we're not privy to, which doesn't seem like a very even playing field.
Yep.
We don't have access to the market data, so to speak. So is there a world in which sites could, share? And look, first of all, a lot of the concerns I hear are, I think, overblown in terms of saying like, oh, well, that's sensitive. And I'm like, look, whatever it costs for an informed consent, isn't related to any one study necessarily. That's independent and agnostic of a study. So sharing that data wouldn't break any rules as far as I'm concerned. Plus, isn't it funny that all that data is getting shared? Your data is getting shared with the vendors, but you can't share your own data with another group. Anyways,
Yeah, so many things to unpack here, Brad. Number
right.
one is 120 votes, with like 86% said, heck yeah. I mean, like, of course I would. It tells me a lot of all of those people that voted. It was like, wow. And then if you read the comments, one of the biggest ones was, oh, that's collusion. You got to better watch antitrust law and things like that. You can be like, what the hell are they doing now? I mean, okay, what you got metadata, and I think they were referenced in the comments, and you've got IQVIA grants database. That's what CROs go to for their information. And they reference, quote, fair market value based off of archaic and underfunded studies that were negotiated, which means that there's nothing fair about fair market value.
Well, and am I completely wrong to say that historical data is not necessarily the same as fair market value?
Correct.
Fair market value
Correct.
is what you is what you will pay and what I will accept, and that may be different than what was what fair market value was 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now I
I
understand that
mean,
can be a starting point. You have to start with something, but
yeah. But
that's doesn't seem to be that's not fair market value. That's historical data.
I mean, you could do easily MAC localities and inflation indices and have a better prediction of fair market value than to go into an archive of contracts that you can't assure were fully funded anyway or negotiated properly. And on top of that, when you start comparing like the private sites and you put them in the same bin as the academic medical institutions, again, there's nothing fair like that because you're comparing someone who has to pay their bills to someone who gets a bunch of state subsidies.
Yeah. That's another really sort of underrated point. I think oftentimes goes missed. And then someone was pointing out, like, oh well, they start with 50% of fair market value or 50% of the historical, fair market value. Well, I mean, isn't that insane? If you can double your budget, was that a good fair market value offer in the first place?
See, that's the thing is you get what you pay for. If you are intentionally or if you are intentionally underfunding your trials, what do you think the quality is going to be like in that trial? What I mean, if when you screw over sites and they're like, yeah, I can't afford this. My crystal ball wasn't intact enough, and now I'm literally upside down on this trial. I'm going to stop it. How is that helping anyone? So I think that this is a really good idea, Brad. Number one is I really do think that the sites should have a site facing fair market value. And I guarantee you that would be a whole lot more accurate than the current situation. You could easily mirror the exact same system that our industry is doing now, only make the sites have that transparency. Or if you don't want to mess with a whole new system, allow sites access to that information. I mean, we're contributing to it anyway. So why aren't we having that? Oh, well, that's going to screw with negotiations. Well, yeah, because you're screwing us over.
Because you're going to have to pay more. So yeah, I mean, I don't see a world in which that would ever. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't want
I
us
think
to know that. I mean,
I think it's going to be easier. What's going to happen is they're going to have their version, we're going to have our version, you're going to have an actual negotiation maybe somewhere in between. My guess is that's what's going to happen because they're not going to let go. But that is in a way something that CRPN is working toward when they perform tailored dynamic master fee schedules for every single one of our sites. So we know, I mean, we don't compare Hightower Clinical to a university or an academic medical institution. It doesn't make sense. Here in the Midwest, dry ice is a big negotiating component. I've had entire weeks delayed on a trial because someone couldn't get dry ice approved. And then I'm like, I'm in the middle of a cornfield. We make our own dry ice. Here's every single letter from every single negotiator I've had in the past year having the same exact conversation. Stop it. So CRPN would know that Midwestern site needs dry ice, and that's part of the negotiation. You skip all of that time that you've just performed 100 times over with every trial you've negotiated. That's the thing, is it's tailored negotiations specific to the site that you work with, and as a result, you reduce the redundancy.
Yeah, makes sense. And to your point earlier, I think probably the truth would be somewhere in between.
Yeah.
What sites would be able to sort of collaborate with their numbers, and you've got the sponsor side, and again, probably, but at least you've got a good basis for negotiation. So often at times it just feels like we're just testing the boundaries little by little to see where's the point to where they say no, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
so ultimately we're not even really working off of anything objective. It's more of like, hey man, how high are you going to go? Just tell me.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
What you got? So maybe that's how high are you going to go, and is that going to pay the bills? I don't know how do you address that bad 3-letter word in negotiations? Max. How do you address max? If they say this is max, this is what we offer, max.
I mean, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I do think so. We've definitely taken the approach of, if you get somebody on the phone, you're going to get a lot more insight from that person, because they're not going to want to put this stuff in emails. But let's not kid ourselves. There's a number, they know it. There's a playbook a lot of these people are going by. So just get them on the phone and say, listen, let's cut some of the crap here. What's your max? What's your max? Okay, maybe we'll just accept it. Maybe sometimes we're still going to ask for 10% more. You know what? Take it to the sponsor. Go ahead. The sponsor, I'm sure, would love to know, that this is what we need. That's not a threat. Please just go escalate it.
Yep.
The thing that's getting us lately is them wanting justification for every single line item that we ask for, any kind of increase on. And then pretty soon they've sort of like, buried you in like, oh, well, you have to write 30 justification statements, for each little line item that you wanted to increase, which I think is also a strategy that's
another one of those,
less than honest,
So I've run into those, and here are the solutions that have worked. One is, if someone comes up to me and they say the word max, it's a huge pet peeve of mine. Never tell me max, because, and this is why, I'm not concerned with your maximum budget. I'm concerned about the cost of performing the services. And if there's a difference, then your max is not enough. And maybe it's plenty. That's fine. I'm not greedy. I'm not trying to gouge, but let's be realistic here. If you come in with this idea of this is as high as I'm going to go, and then you come up to the sites and you tell them that, and the sites say, well, that's not enough. And then it just turns into this huge contingency. So both sides need to come in with realistic numbers. I have approached a negotiator and I said, you know what? We're very efficient in that part right there. We don't need much money in this section, but we need more money in this section. Could you drop this and raise that? It's very possible, but we need to make sure that we're in fundability, not necessarily look at the maximum. The other part about it is, and these poor contract analysts and coordinators, the contract specialists, there's some boss looking over their shoulder saying you have to ask for a document for everything. But generally what'll work is, because most of the time they just need to plug something in. They don't even care what it is sometimes. And if you just look at them and say, I've got one answer for all 40 of your requests, it's not enough money. That's right. It. This is a negotiation. It's not enough money. And then when you say that it's not enough money, they're like, well, okay, tick the box. They told me something. They gave me whatever. And then they go on. But it is a lot of, I guess, bureaucracy, a lot of inefficient systems that are put in place to prevent us from getting the resources we need to serve our sponsors. And it doesn't have to be this way. It really doesn't.
Well, interesting. And I've had some, little back channel conversations with Joe here. The goal is to pay as high as they can without getting flagged. I mean, is that really their goal? I would argue that's not necessarily.
Define Sunshine Act compliance. And if you really want to do that, Joe, go look at Medicare and see how little we are paying. We're nowhere near Sunshine. In fact, we're like, you're not going to trigger Stark or Sunshine, not with the amount of money that you're paying sites versus what physicians could be making. So I wouldn't. I mean, that's just kind of like a smoke screen.
But I mean, the concept of going one round and being done, is this what you want? I mean, I would say, I mean,
I'd
yes,
love it.
if
Yep.
everybody's,
Yep.
in agreement, absolutely. So
Do it.
why having all these sophisticated tools doesn't seem to have made it any easier. We still go round and round,
Yep.
a lot. And look, I get it. There comes a point where a sponsor does have to say, look, this is all we're paying. But
Yep.
I mean, let's just not play the game. Just tell me, okay? And don't make me write a bunch of justification letters and get insane with it. If you have as high as you're going to go, that's fine. And if we're willing to accept it, then I guess that's fair market value.
Yep.
That's as much as you're willing to pay, and that's what I'm
Yep.
willing to accept. I guess that's now.
Yeah.
Fair
But
market
don't.
value.
I think what happens a lot of times is sites get desperate. They say, we really need this trial. We need this to do payroll. So we're going to kind of bite it and we're going to try to rig it with the money that they give us. I'd be very cautious when I make those decisions, because if you have to think like that, you're going to compromise your quality. And maybe that's just not the right trial for you. And I've said, no, I'm sorry, we can't perform the trial with the money you're offering. And we've moved on. And I mean, there's 3 more trials behind them that are ready to fill that spot, who are willing to pay us for what we need to do the work. So it's just be real careful on that. I know I understand sites out there. We're just trying to make payroll. We have to get this through so we get the money. You're shooting yourself in the foot. And if you're in that kind of a situation as it is, adding an underfunded trial to your portfolio is probably the worst thing you could do.
And I'd be curious to know. I mean, this is just a general question. If anybody out there knows, I mean, are there any instances of a sponsor being slapped for overpaying a site? Is that a thing
Anyone out
that
there?
happens all the time? So I'd be curious to know. I mean, maybe it does. I have a strong suspicion it probably doesn't.
I've seen only once. There was one time where I suspect that may have happened. Someone offered me an initial budget right out the gate of something that was just huge. And I mean, like more like they're literally volunteering these extra invoiceables and volunteering this extra money. Turns out the PI was on their board.
Yeah, well,
So
sure. And
yeah,
I mean, I
so
can
that,
understand
you know,
conflicts of interest
that
or things
thing,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. So
For
there's
sure.
your sunshine. There's your anti-kickback. There's the things like that. As long as you're not double dipping, as long as you're not paying more than some realistic commercial rate of Medicare, which you never will in this industry at this point, you don't have to worry about sunshine. I mean, reportability is fine, but you don't have to worry about compromising sunshine. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know. I admit to being sort of somewhat uneducated about that. I want to hit a couple of these other comments before
Yeah,
we wrap
thank
up
you
here.
for the
Some good
engagement,
ones.
everyone. This is pretty awesome.
Thomas, I assume you're a CRA.
Yep. Tom Peterson.
While I agree, DCTs are needed to ensure the show goes on. Do you think DCTs are still pushing forward, given the fact that sites, at least major academic institutions, are noting that it's easier to manage a DCT as opposed to dealing with pain in the ass CRAs and consultants like me being present on site? So I would challenge that myself. I mean, I'm not an academic institution. Frankly, I mean, look, CRAs, we all know, probably just like site staff, are double-edged sword. They can either be a pain in the ass, they can be your best friend. They can be a huge resource and really impact your success as a site in a positive way. So shout out to CRAs. Again, overwhelmingly, it's positive experience. Occasionally, some of them are just pure pains in the ass. I agree. I'd be curious, though, do academic institutions view DCTs as easier to manage? Or I'm a little bit surprised to hear that, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, again, it's a money thing, maybe. So maybe they're easier to manage because academic institutions have a bunch of free labor. Just saying. I don't think that they don't necessarily have to see the true profit loss of DCTs. And since they just take lowball budgets anyway, most of the time, it's not a big deal. Which, by the way, Tom,
some of their funding is not they're not necessarily operating just based off of their research revenue.
Yeah. So maybe
I've been there. So
maybe DCTs can survive on government money. That's one really good way of saying it. And by the way, so Tom's really good at escalations. So if you ever, that's his favorite E word. And so you'll have to tell them about that sometime.
Well, and you tacked on too. And look, you're not wrong here either. I mean, there's certainly going to be sites who are just trying to make cash grabs as well. We're not all angels like me and Dr. Fox here that are just trying to do always the right thing at all times and be paid perfectly fairly. So, I can agree. Very likely there'll still be sites who want too much, and that's okay too. I mean, ultimately it's up to both parties to decide, and some sites will overvalue themselves. I just have a feeling right now sites are mostly undervalued rather than overvalued. And again, I don't have any objective data to prove that right now, but that's my suspicion. Because you don't hear a lot of sites, maybe besides our good friend Chris Sauber. We're not all driving Corvettes and taking ski vacations. Every winter or fall that a lot of I see on the other side of the other side of the aisle. You know what I mean?
I need a new roof. That's pretty much a ski vacation. So
Yeah.
I'll be trying to save for a roof. But anyway.
Well, and to Frank's point too, I mean, look, obviously what Care Access is doing and their philosophy, I applaud. Right? I mean, there's again a lot of great people there, which I've said, and I don't think that necessarily they're doing any. What they're doing is great in concept, but again, I can feel like so much goodwill can be wiped away pretty damn quickly with one bad. And I'm with you. I hope it doesn't taint the idea of community-based research. Obviously, me and Dr. Fox work in community-based research. That's also why I have such a strong feelings about it. I don't want to see that get a bad name. And even DCTs, again, even though I've been critical, I do see a ton of value in the tools that are being brought to the table. So, I mean, that's my interest, right? I mean, I'm in this. I got skin in the game. I got a lot of skin in the game. I got all my skin in the game. So I don't want to see this stuff go south because of some, whatever that it is. I don't want to say bad actors, but bad situations, right?
Yep, and I'm with you as well, Frank. The community-based care is very dependent on some of the technologies that we have for like the autistic-friendly clinical research that we're pushing. A lot of the other things, MedVector is helping with a lot of community-based in the physician offices, and we're going to be working with that. So it's not going to go away, but I think that we, especially with these new guidances, we're going to have really think about how we're going to adjust our logistics for long-term progress, not necessarily for COVID progress.
Yeah, I'm going to address Jeanette here. I don't mean to scare people who open sites. I feel like, honestly, the other day I had somebody ask me about opening a site, and I almost just said, just don't do it. It's just too much. But I mean, that's not true. I think there need to be more people opening sites, and maybe this is why, again, I wanted to share like our financial outcomes more transparently, just as a small, private site network, and sort of talk more. I think it'd be really cool to do like a public, again, I'm obviously not a public company, but to act like one and be like, look, here's our numbers. This is what a small site looks like, and this is what they can do, or good or bad, because it's not always good. But I think it would be instructive, and maybe even encourage more participation.
I was talking to someone before I opened Land of Lincoln, and they looked at me straight in the eyes and they said, before you start a site, you may want to have about $300,000 in the bank. And I was like, whoa, that hit me really hard, 300 grand. But I'm starting to see why. Why they have that.
I had about $30,000 in the bank when I
started
mine. But
and you just started like a physician's office, right? And you scaled up from there.
Yeah. I did it with very, very little overhead. It's a whole different story, talk about someday. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to try to go big, I get it. But, for me, it's always been like, go slow and low, build slowly, build right. I've seen, again, too many companies try to get out and scale crazily and just shoot themselves in the foot. Now, again, some of these companies, they have $40 million to play with. I don't even know what I would do if I had, that kind of capital.
if you do me a favor, Matthew Bullock just threw one out that is very critical. Matthew, what you said here is spot on, my friend. Absolutely. In scope, fee for service. Let's start speaking the language of healthcare, not the language of research finance. Let's expect our healthcare providers to integrate into research by understanding how we're going to pay them. You are exactly right. And when you do the in-scope fee-for-service demands of healthcare into research, you're going to save money because you're going to eliminate all of those crazy amounts in the budget that may not necessarily be earned by sites. Full itemization. So I like that. Thank you.
I love it, guys. I think we're wrapping up here. We're a little bit over the hour.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, Frank, appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys and your comments. I'll do a quick plug. I'm mostly on LinkedIn, but check out notetofilepodcast.com for all of our previous episodes, including other live streams with Dr. Fox, as well as audio podcasts from Dr. Fox. Mm-hmm. If you got a few minutes, consider going over to YouTube and subscribing. I think I've got about 20 subscribers over there. So it'd be nice to build that up.
One more plug, Save Our Sites Conference. Save Our Sites Conference, February 2nd, 2024. Brad and I are two of the executives on the team. You can rest assured that there will be some candid conversations being performed, not only at the conference, but also throughout the year. So www.saveoursites.com.
Yeah, I know, Ted, thanks for checking in. I mean, I wish we could have had some time to cover the new DCT guidance. Maybe we can slip something in.
That could be another podcast.
Yeah, well, I think I need to read it through a little bit. But anyways, to Dr. Fox's point, SOS, big shouts to Dan Sfera, Ashley Margot, Monica Kultiva, Judy Galindo. All the folks over there are doing all the hard work while we just talk. But, we're looking forward to it. I think it'll be really exciting. And I want to be like this. I want to be casual conversations, with input from the crowd. So anyways, guys, I know we're over time. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Dr. Fox, where can people find you online?
LinkedIn, all over the place if you want to find me, or at www.crpaynet.com. Please feel free to send me an email and I'll reach out.
All right. Thanks, guys. Until next week.
All right.